Jess Levin, show your face. Say what up.
Hi.
How you doing? What's up, Jess Levin? What's up? Welcome to the couch.
Thank you for
Good to
having
see
me,
you.
man.
Of course, Jess Levin 25.
25?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
I think, isn't that your Venmo name?
Oh, Jessica dash 1125. Anybody wants to send me money?
Yeah, literally. I think that was a great way to start the episode. Just straight Venmo action.
Venmo me up, dude.
So we were talking, because you did the Ted Jones comedy show, I guess, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I sent a Venmo to another Jessica Levin.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you get your money back?
I did.
All right,
but
good.
like it was because of her, though. It wasn't because of Venmo.
She's
like
a
Venmo
kind-
didn't give it back.
That's
like,
nice. There's a Jessica
There's
Levin
another
that's
nice I should
Jess
say
Levin.
another.
I'm okay. I'm all right.
Well, you're a nice one. You're a nice Jess Levin.
I tend to be.
So I told her, I was
Sometimes.
like, anytime you come to New York City, you want to come to a Ted Jones comedy show, you're more than welcome.
That's
Jess Levin
awesome.
listening on the other side.
Jess Levin that exists that has a 25 in it, maybe.
Where are you from? Initially, we'll start from the beginning.
Everywhere. I was born in Jersey.
Everywhere. We're in Jersey.
Hillsdale.
I was born in New Brunswick.
Oh, okay. It's south for me.
Yeah.
I'm north.
What town is Hillsdale?
It's next to like
Canada?
Ridgewood, Westwood.
Okay,
It's north.
and you
Bergen County.
went to high school in Bergen County?
No, I didn't. I left. My dad retired from sanitation. We moved to North Carolina. We hated it. We left. We moved to PA. I was there for a part of junior high school, and then I went back to New York for college and bounced around everywhere.
Sanitation in New York City?
Yeah.
So I just finished watching Sopranos.
I know everyone brings that up. It's so funny. It's like, I mean,
That's
I
like
get
the
it.
relation I have to sanitation just because I
hear ya.
watch it. you
No,
know
of
what I'm
course,
saying?
and you're not the only one.
The
dude, but
mob.
that's that's private sector. That's not
Yeah.
public sector.
Right,
I mean,
right,
trust me,
right.
they got into their own shit.
The
but
waste management shit.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's just
So
that's my uncle.
my cousin. Oh, that's funny. My cousin is like head of the garbage department in Staten Island. Like full head.
well
And I
then,
wanted to
yeah.
get him on the pod, and he was like, "We can't talk about any of that business."
Yeah. No, he's
Which
on a
is
different-
interesting, 'cause, like, the
he's in his
questions-
own little element.
Okay, because like the questions I was gonna ask him, like I'm sure he like couldn't really answer
No.
anyway, just like on a public forum.
No.
You know, I'd have been like, "How many bodies you find in the trash?"
Yeah, I mean-
you know, we cap it at telling people more than 3.
Right. My dad would say he was a bar guy and his brother's a cafe guy. That was the analogy. I don't know. They always talked in some freaking
Some
like
lingo.
we have algorithms, they have old sayings.
Right,
you know
right,
what I
right.
mean? Or like whatever. What do you call them? I said algorithms. I didn't mean acronyms.
Something like the acronyms, right?
Acronyms.
But so you jumped around a lot as
Yeah.
a kid, and then how did you end up in New York? Did you go to like college here?
Well, my parents are all from here, so New York was always a home base for me. Like even when I lived in PA, I wasn't allowed to drive to Philly, but I was allowed to drive to New York.
Why not?
Because my parents hate, like, they're like, Philly's a shithole, and that's where
Really?
you're gonna get killed. But you can drive to New York whenever you want.
When did Kensington start becoming crazy, like the heroin
It's
capital
always
of Philly?
was Kensington. It was always bad. It was really always bad. Like Philly's, like, you know what I mean. So my parents, it's also because of what they're used to. My mom's from Chelsea, born and bred. My dad's from the
Chelsea,
Bronx.
Manhattan?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
19th and 9th.
Okay, and like back then, or I don't know how old your mom is, but like
Yeah,
it
back
was
then.
really not
it
not a good place.
Well, it wasn't a bad. No, it was all right. And New York was New York. Like you had bad run-ins and shit.
Yeah.
But it was still like everyone lived. Like there was no like my mom's building had like a guy that was a violist, like first chair at the New York Philharmonic, and then there was a writer for the New Yorker. And then you had like a garbage. You had all
just
cop.
all,
You had a
like,
cop on the
working
first
class
level.
people.
It was just all different sides of people. It wasn't
Yeah.
so separated.
Right. Like you have the finance guy on one side of the street.
Yeah, and then the other. So
whatever it
people
is.
were a lot more, who was more of a like a heterogeneous society.
like kind of community more based, maybe.
Yeah, like everyone kind of knew each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, it had its shit, but it's like everyone knew. Like it's kind of like you mind your own business. And my mom had some run-ins with shit, but it was just kind of like, I don't know. It was around, but it was just different. It wasn't as heavily as populated as it is now.
Yeah, so I grew up on 18th between 2nd and 3rd, like from the ages of 5 to 18. I
Oh,
lived
right,
there.
right.
And I remember coming over to Chelsea, just like playing tennis here, doing whatever, like gym classes, and it was just all parking lots around here.
Yeah, it was
like
it was
buildings across the
desolate.
street, 6th Avenue. It was
Right.
just straight like 1,000-foot parking
Right.
lots, and then they changed the zoning laws, and then they just went up like 50 stories.
Correct. You know what I mean? And then you had, of course, you had the red lines and you had like, public housing and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, everyone kept their own business. I mean, some things would be bad, but it wasn't like, I don't know. She never made it like she got, followed a couple times but it was just kind of like, it wasn't like there's shootings and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and even New York now is safer than it was back in the 70s.
I hate it. Like,
I hate when people are like, it's not safe now. Like, shut up,
the tourists like will walk from Soho to
stupid.
Times Square so they avoid the train.
I know,
like,
they're
what, you
just
guys
dumb.
just wasting time.
Well, it's the same thing when I
here.
bring up to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for a minute, and everyone's like, ooh, Chicago's unsafe. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to Cabrini Green. You know what I mean? I'm not going to the South Side.
Yeah, it's also like
They
too
have
damn
awful.
cold.
Yeah, it's awful, but it's not. I don't go looking for. You can avoid trouble.
So you
know
grew
what I
up in the suburbs of Pennsylvania for an extended period of time?
For extended period. Like, I grew up in the suburbs of Jersey till I was like 12.
Yeah.
And then 13, we went to North Carolina, and we left like in 9 fucking months. We got out of there real quick.
Oh, really? What part of North Carolina, by the way?
Where was it? We were moved to Morehead City.
Say my grandmother grew up in Oxford, North Carolina, so
I
I
don't
still
even
have
know.
family down
yeah,
there.
I have
Small,
no
rural tobacco
family. We had
farm
nothing.
town.
Oh wow, we have nothing down there. My mom hated it. She didn't want to go there in the first place. My dad didn't want to pay New Jersey taxes, so he's like,
Oh,
fuck
so he was
this.
like, let's go somewhere where the taxes
Let's
are
go
less.
south. Exactly. That
Not
was
Florida? You don't want to go Florida?
I don't know what the whole gist of that was. I don't know what it was. I don't know why. I was, you know what I mean? They just like, we're moving here, and I was like, all right. And then
Yeah.
we fucking hated it. And then I also have a handicapped sister, and she wasn't. It wasn't hospitable to that, the way that they handled that, and it was It was just horrible. It was really bad. It was bad. So we left and we moved before we even sold the house. My brother played football for Westchester University, which is a suburb.
Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we found out about that area.
My cousin went to Westchester High School,
Oh,
by the
shit.
way.
Oh,
so
okay.
funny. You and I have so many different freaking places
Yeah,
that we're
so do
familiar
mine.
with.
Word, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so
dude.
my mom went to Harriton High School, which is like Kobe Bryant's rival high school in Lower Merion.
okay.
And then my cousin grew up close-ish to the King of Prussia Mall. So I'm like kind of familiar with Philadelphia. For the most part.
Right. So yeah, I went there when I was like, I guess 14, and then 18. So yeah, 4 years. 5 years.
What was your high school experience like?
It was kind of cool actually, because I went to Downingtown, which like before it kind of divided was
That's where my cousin went.
the original Downingtown.
Yeah, I think so. He played
Yeah.
soccer there. Downington High School, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the original. It was like it was huge. It was
so
the biggest.
What's the new one? What do you mean?
There's Downtown East and West. It got so
okay.
overpopulated.
Shit, maybe it wasn't
Now
one of
they
those.
went to
Okay.
2.
Right.
But I was in the original original one where we
The
had like
OGs?
it was the biggest. It was huge. There was like no one gave a shit. There was no like that's. I mean, as far as no one gave a shit. Everyone had like it was bigger than my college. I think my graduating class had like 900 kids in it or something
Oh,
crazy.
kids like smoking weed in the parking lot?
Yeah, no one just gave a shit. It was kind of like you know what I mean? You had to be like, and then, I mean, this is the era when Columbine happened.
I was just
too,
going to
so it's
ask
just
if there
like
was any
we're the
thoughts
OG
about
of mass
Columbine. Was
shooting.
that like when you were in high school, Columbine?
Yeah, I was a senior.
Damn. So what was
Yeah.
what was your thought process behind that? For those of you who don't know, the first I'd say school shooting, and then ever since then we've had thousands.
Multiple.
Multiple.
When it first, it was kind of like, holy shit. And then also kind of like, I'm sure there was kids that got repercussions, like there was rumors, but then people were putting in false bomb scares.
What do you mean there were rumors? Like at your school?
Rumors that there was like, oh, this kid has a list of people that he wants to murder, and like the weird kids that got like stuck
Was that
out.
like
But
for
I don't,
attention though?
I don't know, because and again, I wasn't part of that shit because it's like I hung out with like kids that were like, we're smoking weed, listening to Fish, and driving around.
Let's go. Was that like the
That's-
theater group or
Some theater group kids. I played with I used to be an athlete, so I hung out with some athletes too. But
What sport?
I played basketball.
Okay.
And field hockey.
Nice. So I went to UConn. We won the national championship
Did
in
you
field
really?
hockey when I was there. Yeah,
No
I
shit.
played tennis there, so I had
Oh,
like a little
wow.
thing with a girl on the field hockey team. She's got a kid now, but
Oh wow, dude!
Power
Shout
to ya.
out. I wanted to go when I was
I
a
forgot her
kid.
name, Maria.
Oh man, must have been a great relationship. If you forget her fucking name, fucking dick. That's nice.
Maria.
Yeah, sure.
Marie.
Yeah, Marie. Oh,
Marie.
Marie. There you go.
It's called something Spanish.
Yeah, dude. I'm blue. That's awesome. But yeah, I did that, and then I came to a point where I'm like, well, what am I gonna do with basketball? Like my brother was a college athlete.
So where did he go
went
after
to-
Westchester?
Nowhere. He kind of got like, fuck this kind of. He was an all-state Jersey quarterback and everything.
But then moved to Pennsylvania, and what happened?
He came to Westchester and he played football, and his coach left, so he kind of got fucked.
how old was he when he
He got redshirted, so he was there at 18, and then like 19 was he was going to start, and then the coach left at 19. So it's like, that's what it sucks because when you have a new
position for
it
all
is
the football
because you
kids.
get a new, and then I think he was kind of like fuck this because I mean to be real with you, football came easy to him, and then it's like you hit a certain point, and you're like fuck, I got to work harder, and he was just like fuck this, I'd rather.
I feel
party.
like that happens with a lot of kids in high school. They see that like they're the star stud in middle school, and then once like freshman sophomore year comes around, they gotta take it seriously, and they don't.
Right. And for me, like sports was like I had to work really like basketball. I had to work really hard. Plus, I was a kid from Jersey originally. We moved to North Carolina. I didn't fit in with the Pennsylvania kids, so it's just kind of weird.
Why is that though? Because you were in New Jersey and then you went to North Carolina, but then went to Pennsylvania. Was that kind of different? New Jersey and
because a
Pennsylvania?
lot of the kids played together since they're kids.
Oh, like they're from the same town.
So they're from the same town.
And they're like, who's this outsider?
Who's this outsider? And my parents weren't like, my parents didn't go to college and shit. Like you had these kids that are like, oh, we went to UPenn. Hey, Bill. It's like my parents were like, my dad was a sanitation worker. My mom did everything else. You know what I mean? He was a bartender. He worked at the Ironman. You know what I mean? He did a lot of city guy.
You moved here when? New York City.
I moved at 18 here to go to Marymount Manhattan College.
Was that an all-girls school?
No, it used to be.
Maybe they have a high school that's all-girls school or something?
They used to be though. It used to be a school for nuns.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then but it became a liberal arts college, so it has like it's theater mostly, musical theater.
And did you go
dance,
there so you can pursue like theater
acting.
type?
Yeah.
So what were you doing initially, performing arts wise?
Performing arts wise, I was acting and like doing a lot of community theater and shit. And I grew up with a lot of theater. Like my dad used to take me to a lot of theater. That's old school New Yorkers used to like going to the theater was a thing you did. But it was a lot more approachable. It wasn't like, you had freaking like Arthur Miller plays and all this shit going on. So things were a lot more
Death
like
of a salesman type.
Yeah, things were, and ticket prices weren't extremely egregious.
$250.
Disney didn't come and take over. Exactly. It was just, it was a different time basically then. At that time it was Andrew Lloyd Webber that it was fucking just,
What did he write again?
Cats, fucking Phantom of the Opera.
You know what's the craziest thing ever?
Evita. He's like the 80s of like
I remember
theater, 70s.
that Cats commercial was on
hated
TV it was for 15 years.
Dude, it was on the back of buses. I remember seeing it everywhere. That cat, like the branding and the marketing of that was
the same commercial
insane.
too.
It was, dude. And we went. I remember my mom and we went, and I was like, I remember being a kid. I was like 7 or 6, and I was like, this sucks.
Oh,
and
you didn't even like?
No. And I was like, this sucks. Yeah, my parents have no college education, but they're very like cultured.
Are they Italian?
I know they have a lot. No, my dad's from the Bronx, so we hung out with a lot of Italians, but he's Irish and I think has like a little Russian in him. So, my mom's Irish and a little German.
Did you find that as a kid though, you were able to experience New York City more so than a kid growing up today would, as their father being a sanitation worker?
And from the Bronx, yeah, most definitely. He didn't make a point to shy away from. Like I remember driving in the city and knowing the crack. You know what I mean? We never shied away. The 8th Avenue used to be a whole bunch of 9th Avenue too, strip joints and shit like that. I remember that being around.
Sapphires and shit.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. And big guys and guys and gals or some shit. I can't remember. But so I never. Yeah, I remember coming into the city as a kid and always having some little anxiety, plus seeing my grandmother, my dad's mom, who was a cunt, and she was a bitch. So it was always kind of like anxiety inducing.
But did you feel like growing up also that you maybe like had the same, like what kind of kids were you growing up with at that particular time? Like wealthier kids? Or?
Well, some were wealthy, like because Jersey started switching. So when my brothers grew up there, it was a lot of guys that were working in the city.
Brothers?
My older brothers, yeah. A lot of guys that were working in the city. They're firemen, policemen, sanitation. They all were, and they moved to Jersey. And then I guess because of Reagan and the structure of Jersey, not Hoboken, I forget. I can't remember, but it started becoming its own little like Wall Street. So a lot of oil money and a lot of like. I grew up with a kid from Jordan. I had a kid from Portugal. It was like the UN. I knew a kid from Russia.
I wonder if that pushed out the sanitation workers, the fire department workers, police department.
Well, it brought in a lot of money, and then even rich, people from California. I remember there was a guy. Yeah, so there's some snobs, assholes. It was assholes or working class or rich.
Like
white class,
Wall Street rush.
Yeah, kind of a thing. Yeah, so it was a mix, but it was a lot of people from a lot of places, man. Like I said, my good friend was from Jordan. Another friend of mine was off the boat from Ireland. Her parents were off the boat Irish, Portuguese, a Russian girl, Indian. Yeah.
And what kind of fields were their parents working in when they came over?
Some, from what I remember, I think the Jordanian one, I think he was, and he wanted to go back too, and the mother didn't. I think the mother was a nurse, and the father did something in executive world. But he was never around. It was kind of like when you're a kid and you hear Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah. It's like you only see their legs.
Yeah.
That's like kind of what I remember. Yeah. I just don't remember him as being a full-on person.
When did you start stand-up in New York?
Oh my God.
Talking about comedy finally.
Stand up. That's a mixed thing. I started when I was younger. Like I did like an open mic when I was 18 in New York, and I was just like
improv here and there.
Yeah, and I kept on trying to fight for improv, but I always hated it. Like I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I had friends throughout the years be like, you should do stand up. But I was like, you just found me funny because you're a friend of mine.
Well, what'd you do? UCB?
No, my first taste of it, really, I did. I can't even remember. I think the first one was, I think I tried it out, and yeah, I guess so. I guess UCB, but when I went to Detroit, I worked on a movie in Detroit, and I lived there for a minute. I tried their thing. They have a system, I think, Ant something. I can't remember what that one's called. It's horrible. And then in Cali, I tried storytelling.
You've lived so many places.
Yeah, I've moved around a lot, but New York's always like, New York's my home.
I was just gonna ask. So I was in Chicago right before I guess it started to get freezing cold, like in the middle of November. But what kind of stuff were you doing in Detroit when you lived there? Did you work a day job?
Yeah. So at that point I left Chicago because I was working on Chicago PD, and I didn't want to go back for another season because it was grueling.
What kind of roles did they have you play there?
I was a key set PA, so I worked in film and TV production, which is why I've been
key set.
You help your assistant director with the day-to-day of on set. So you make sure the actors are where you need them to be. You're making sure the PAs are set up. Positions are right. You know, you're helping with that to get the day done, as they say. So I did that for a very long time. I did that, and that's what kept me traveling at different places and stuff like that.
Did they have you working outside a lot?
Oh, yeah. Too? I had sometimes when it was cold, we had to alternate the PAs. We had heating tents. So every hour I had to it was crazy.
You'd be like in the freezing cold for 1 hour and then not freezing cold for 1 hour? Is that what you mean?
But I would, when you're up there, you kind of I have to be by the camera. So I would try to go, I'd get maybe here and there. But for the most part, yeah, the AD's out there, you're out there.
Yeah, like sometimes when it gets so cold in New York, I'm like, why do we even live here as people? And then I'm going down to Florida on Friday. But it's just it just feels like everywhere you can say that in the United States. I guess except for like if you're in Alaska, you're like legitimately, why do people live here?
Right.
It's freezing.
Right, yeah. I don't know. I'm an ice queen. First, I'm built like,
an ice queen?
I like the winter. I love that. I do. I love the winter, man. I
don't love it, but I like it. It's fine.
I love it.
You love it, really?
Yeah, I do. I love winter. I like Chicago winters too. I like Chicago winters because they have a culture of cold. They know how to. They have cool, they have these bathhouses you can go to that are legitimate and they're really cool. And they have Korean ones. They have Russian. They have all sorts of type ones. And it's a culture that it's so cold there that they've created a world that you can live and do cool shit in the winter.
I love that. Like they've fully taken.
They embrace it. You know what I mean? So and also when it's freezing. Spring and fall, when it happens, they're like, oh my God, holy shit. So they do a lot of cool outside shit. So it's just like, I like that for that. I just New York's my home, and also I don't fuck with lakes. I'm an ocean person. I don't get the lake thing.
So I went when I was in Chicago. I went on the lake, and it just it looked exactly like an ocean.
It looked totally. It floored me, and that's why I like too in the winter. I like seeing the ice on the lake. It's so pretty to me because I'm not going to swim in that shit.
By the way, does the whole thing freeze over or a good amount of it?
I think a good amount of it, man. I don't know what the science of that, but that's why I like that lake effect shit. I mean, the weather changes more than the mood of a girl that just get her period. It's it's schizophrenic as fuck. Yeah. But it was but it was fun. Yeah, I've traveled a lot.
So what's been your favorite place? Well, I guess in New York you said.
Well, New York's number one. I enjoyed Detroit a lot. I really did. I like Detroit a lot. The people are cool. The actual city itself is cool.
Was there any comedy specific things that you were doing when you were in Detroit?
Not really. I'm kind of lame. I started doing comedy. Like the first time I hit a stage was at Helium Comedy Club in Philly to do comedy hardcore, to do it. And I did it then. And that's when probably Ian, what's his fucking name? Fidance and all that stuff. He was there at that time. And, he was way above me. But I remember doing an open mic and he was there. And I was like, oh, man. And I didn't make the connection until I was back here and now I'm in this world. So I was like, wow, okay. And I'm wondering if Shane Gillis was there and I didn't realize, what I mean? I think because that's how long ago it was. And then, and I went to the Laugh House and a bunch of places. But the problem was I didn't, because of doing film and TV production, and I was making my money. Being a PA, you don't get paid that well. And I never thought about doing comedy forever.
Do you think you were distracted though with the job that was paying you?
Yeah, I was distracted.
But did you like the Chicago PD job? Like, was it something that you could see yourself do in the future?
No, I just got stuck in it, and I just thought,
oh my God, Jess, doesn't that happen to everyone in a profession too?
Yeah, I got stuck in it.
And you
for
got
years.
out, but
yeah, but I mean, before Chicago PD, I worked on Creed, I've worked on Spider-Man, I've worked on a bunch of shit.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, go on IMDb. You can see my
hell yeah, the flex, Jess Levin 25.
Well, dude, I'm old. I just turned 42, so I fucking
still young.
And the minute I lived in South Carolina for a minute, I worked in kitchens. I did dolphin safari tours. I did a lot of shit.
What's a dolphin safari?
It's like I gave tours for fucking tourists usually from Ohio. Sorry, you're schmucks, but and then
don't they just hold on to the dolphins and go to the safari?
Well, they're kind of like, how are we gonna feed them? I'm like, you're not gonna fucking feed them. They're animals in the wild.
Some bread. I
know. I love when we want to make someone dumb. We do Southern accents.
Well, it's fair enough for them.
No, right. So but for real, they were just like, they come in and they have like candy bars. It was just stupid.
Candy bars?
Yeah, they're fucking.
How about
I don't know.
5?
I don't get it. So I would do these little I had a night job where I was waiting tables, bartending. I worked in kitchens, and then I had another job where during the day I would work on this with this woman. She was really sweet. Her name's Holly. She ran a dolphin safari cruise. So these tourists would come and we'd take them out in the water and we show them how people catch shrimp, and you had to throw a net, and I'd have to do a fucking tour with the thing.
So you'd be on a boat with the microphone cracking jokes.
Blah, blah, blah.
This is like pre-stand up.
Yeah, kind of. But mostly I was very hungover or wasted because this is my full on
drinking pina coladas.
Dude, I was. You want to talk about drinking Levin? I was drinking and partying, doing blow till 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh! And then hopping on the boat.
And then hopping on the boat. Yeah.
But would you swim with the dolphins or no?
Just swimming. Safari. You just strictly we'd go on the boat, and there's a lot of estuaries and a lot of creeks and stuff like that. So we'd go on the boat for that, and I'm I'm so hungover, still drunk. When you're young, you could still do that.
How old were you at that time?
I mean, at that point, my buddy, what happened was we graduated from college, and my buddy's like, hey, you want to move down to South Carolina and we'll start a theater company? And we thought we'd do that.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, in hindsight, no, because it's Hilton Head. No one gives a shit about theater.
Yeah, sure.
They want to play tennis, golf, or go to the beach and get hammered and whatever the hell they want to do. They don't want to go see Sam Shepard, True West. They don't care. They don't even know that. They'd rather see a stupid musical or some shit. Mm-hmm. So we tried doing that. It failed. So I went through a lot of failures in life before I've landed. I mean, it's still failing, but
you're doing great.
I'm doing all right. Yeah. I mean, I'm doing okay.
How long did you work at that dolphin sanctuary, if they call it a sanctuary?
God, I might have did it for a season. You know what I mean?
So what's that, 3 months?
Yeah, 3 months.
I was gonna ask, since dolphins, I think, are known as being very smart animals, right?
They're wicked smart, and they stay in the same.
Did you see that?
Yeah, you'd see the same dolphins too. They pods. They would cultivate in the same. They'd come back a lot. They're really cool. They're very docile, beautiful creatures. It's very sweet that I got to do it. Sometimes through the hangover of my gaze, I'd be like, wow, this is really sweet. This is dope. But I was always kind of I was kind of, I don't know, the hero's journey. You're kind of searching for shit, and you just kind of wanted to go explore and fuck shit up and live life for a while.
Are you an animal person?
Yeah, I love animals. I don't have any though because I love them too much. I can't take care of them.
How do you mean? It would take up too much time?
It would take up too much time, and I don't think I could provide for one right now. Once I get more steady in my life, I would love to get I want a dog. That's the first thing I'm gonna get is a dog.
I mean, it's crazy how much we can fall in love with our pet and they never talk to us.
Right.
Ladies, take note.
Well,
no,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. You know what I mean? But it is wild, especially in a place like New York. You see people outside 10 degrees at 5 in the morning, walking their dog. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
And with comedy, once I get to a point, I know comedy's always this, but once I get to a point where it's comedy and I'm on a good roll and I can dictate my schedule in some way.
Nice.
I don't know. I might get one next week. I don't know.
Right, because some of my friends legitimately will spend. Well, they work like 9 to 5s. They'll spend like $60 a day on the dog. Cause
right.
Like in the morning they'll just drop it off, then come home.
Right.
And then I'm sure they're spending money on the food and whatever.
Right.
So it is like kind of having a mini type child, especially when you live in the city.
Exactly, dude. Especially if you live in the city. And then if the babes get sick, I want to be able to, take care of it properly.
And then, it's funny because like I don't think there's anything, like there's no real schedule for how much you should be paying for each dog shot or how much on food. So especially if you live in a place like New York City, you're going to be paying more for the, I don't know if dogs take flu vaccines than you would in like Milwaukee. Or
exactly.
Like that.
You know what I mean? So it's just, cost of living is higher. So all that shit's higher. So it's just all dependent on that.
What's been the cheapest place that you've lived in? I guess talking on cost of living. I know, it was probably like like 15, 20 years ago, but was that ever a place?
Yeah, I'd say like Chicago. I couldn't believe how cheap it was.
And like the architecture is beautiful.
It's known for that. And then also just I couldn't, for what you get, like I remember like I got it downstairs and it was just easier to find an apartment. Like everything was just so much easier.
What do you mean you got it downstairs?
I had a whole downstairs to myself, basically. I got my own room, my own bathroom, and there was a backyard and there was a way to get in. And this is in Logan Square. And it wasn't like recent Logan Square. This is like, I guess when was this? I worked on season 3 of Chicago PD and I'm trying to remember the date. But maybe it was 2000. It is a while ago. Maybe 2016. I would have to look up the number, but around there, right? So just like, and I got a parking spot, with a garage. Yeah. So it's just like, I didn't have to worry about taking my car out of the, Plus my life was just so much easier. Like I had a break-in my car and because I worked on Chicago PD, they called the cops and I was able to do a report while I was at work.
Oh, they made an episode out of it?
No, right? Exactly. That'd be not even that interesting for them. Are you kidding me? They're like, where's the child? You know what I mean? That's not enough. Kidding me? Oh, wow. Some girl got her car broken into over fucking walkie-talkies. It's not enough. Gotta have the stakes high, kid.
Oh my God. Literally, I forgot what I was talking about. Well, my friend actually lives in Chicago. He's a penis doctor now, so
good.
He enjoys it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. In the future, if I ever need anything, I forgot what I was going to ask. You got me lolling.
But yeah, no. So but it was good for that. So I enjoyed like Chicago, and also just everything and I met good friends right away. It was just a really good all around great experience.
Where were you in 2020 when all the shit hit the fan?
I was just wrapping. Yeah, I was wrapped on Last OG, and we were working on a pilot, Home Economics, and it got canceled. But that whole situation was a shit show.
So were you kind of looking towards just pursuing only production, like being a producer?
I kind of gave up. I wanted to do theater. I wanted to be an actor, but I was just like, this is never gonna fucking happen, and I gave up.
Why'd you feel like that?
Because I don't know. I just was like, well, you know what it is? I didn't like the theater scene. It annoyed me. The theater kids are annoying.
I was gonna say though, yeah, because it seems like you're more passionate about stand up though.
Oh yeah, just stand up was just like, I don't know. I didn't think that was something you could do, that I could do.
Heard that a few times.
I just didn't know I could do that. I didn't know, because I just did this naturally, and my friends were like, "You are a fucking stand up comedian," but I was getting more depressed and more like lost. And finally, my best friend Dan, shout out to him, was like, "Levin, shut the fuck up and just go, dude. Just go and try it and do it."
This
and
is
I did
in New York when you did this?
Yeah, finally, at the age of fucking 38, I was like, all right, fine. And then I did it, and I was like, fuck this. And then I also had so I went from, my life started changing. Like I was able, when you're working for years at your flight or fight forever, flight or fight, well, okay, so there's a part in your brain that, creates a flight or fight mechanism, and that's just inherited in our biology, in our genome of life. You know what I mean? Like back in the day when you're in the woods, it's like, oh, fuck, a bear's going to eat me. I got to keep moving or whatever, right? We still have that response in our brain, which kind of, it manifests in different ways. So in ways for me was that I was always trying to make, I never had no money. I was like, I lived on people's couches, because you get paid minimum wage when you do PA work. But I kept on wanting these adventures, so I kept on doing them. So because it got me to LA, and I worked on cool shit in LA, and I met cool people, and I just kept on doing it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to keep on doing this until I find some form of art form. So I took, writing classes to write mini plays, and I did that for a minute, and I did all this creative shit. And then finally, I was in a place where I was working on a TV show, Kevin Can Wait, and I met this accountant dude, and he was like, hey, why don't I train you how to pay people? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not good with numbers and shit. I never thought I'd be in accounting department. And I'm like, I'm not a nerd. And he was like, well, who gives a fuck? He's like, you can make real money and you could do other shit. And I was like, all right. So I started doing that, and then
accounting,
and it made me make money. So I was able to like finally, you know, not use my underwear drawer, like a Trader Joe's bag as an underwear drawer. I was able to like, oh wow, I can buy, you know, have furniture for stuff. And so I was able to like finally be in a place where I'm like, oh, I can afford to live not like an animal. And then with that gave me structure to be like, oh, now that I have space, I have the brain space to try something new. I'm not just trying to survive.
So you just focused so much on money for
living.
a long time.
I was just living, just trying to live. There was no like, oh man, if I didn't have the brain space or the capacity, and plus depression and I was drinking, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, I just didn't have it until finally I hit a wall. I'm like, this is not working.
Well, was it a point though that you were deep enough into your accounting job where you were like, all right, I have enough money to have brain space to pursue what I want to pursue?
Yeah, but I never, like, I kind of fell into it. I just fell into it, to be honest with you. My buddy was like, go do stand up. I think that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I went, and I was like, wow, this is fun. I don't know. I just clicked.
Did you feel like you needed structure initially to kind of?
I guess I just needed the space.
Your pathway.
Yeah, I needed the space. I needed the space to like give it its sure shot.
Because comics would talk about that. Like, I didn't even know that this was the thing that you could do, stand up. Because it's kind of like, it's so independently drawn. You know, like if you didn't want to go out and, you know, I know you have a show after this. If you didn't want to go, you could just be like, you know, I don't really want to go. Yeah, it's not like you're going to get fired from the job.
No,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. No, the more I do it, the more I love it. I'm the nerd. Like the more I just love it. Every year I go into it, I love it more and more. So thank God I just found something that I naturally just do and love. And it's created, like, my friends that I first started out with, like Levi, I'm still awesome with him. He's like one of the first dudes I met. And that's the thing too, when you start doing it and you find your crew, they're like, yo, that's funny. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. Because I grew up with very funny people. Like, my brothers are fucking hilarious. They're the biggest bull busters on the goddamn planet. Like, my mother is funny. My father's very funny people. Like, they're all very funny people. I grew up with my nan, she was witty as fuck. So it was part of our living. So I never thought of like, oh, this is something that's special or some shit.
I wonder if that slowed you down a little bit.
I think it did.
Isn't everybody funny?
Well, because like that and my, like, you know, like I grew up with very blue collar people where it's like, you don't make a living out of that, you know, where, you know, you got to go build a building or go be a lawyer. You know, we don't like think of like, you know, like they still don't really know what I do. I don't really tell them.
I think also being a child of a blue collar family, like they don't want you to struggle at all. They'd want you to have something safe.
Right. My father actually was the one that was always like, go do that. He was the one who was, I think he was living vicariously. I don't think he wanted to be married and have kids.
Well, when he was,
I think he was like, go.
When he took you to plays and stuff in the city, was he making sure that like it was the play you wanted to see, doing this and that, like for you?
Yeah, kind of. But he was just always good about exposing us to shit. Like he was just very good. Like even going out to eat. It's like even though we had no money, like he'd still take us out to eat. We'd go down on West.
Crazy though.
Yeah, he was like, we'd go to going to West 4th Street as a kid. I remember watching those guys playing basketball my whole life. And then we used to go to an Italian restaurant, La Trattoria, the Cage. Yeah. La Trattoria, which is still over there on so where is it on West where is it, I forget, but anyway we'd go over there a lot and so yeah, going West 4th was always part of my life, and going out to eat and plays and all that stuff. So I always, and my dad, we took us to aquariums, we went to Florida, like he would always take us to shit. So when I was older and I was like, I'm doing this, my dad's like, go. Like even when he was dying, he was like, Dad, I'm going to California. He's like, yep, yeah, you are. You're going to California. You're going to go do these things. So
I feel like it's such a, I don't want to say underrated thing for kids to be able to travel all over the world and see so many different things. But I mean, it's like a lot harder for kids of blue collar parent workers nowadays to do the things that you were doing 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I just had a lust for life. And then I was just like, you know what it is? When I graduated college and I was doing theater, I was like, I need to go figure shit out. And it was just kind of like, and also the only way to do that, I just want to go eat food in different places and you know, experience different people and different environments.
Did you ever get in trouble with your partying ways earlier?
Oh yeah, I did a couple of things. Yeah,
Care to share?
No, but I went through some shit. Yeah.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, I did. You know, and I still practice heathenism. Like I went on a bender for a month and a half, and now I'm drying out. Now I'll do that, I think, for the rest of my life. I think I'll dry out, and then there'll be this internal like, grrr!
So you have like a moment, like a month and a half where you're sober type?
Yeah, kind of a thing. I won't drink. I'll smoke weed every now and then, but I just won't drink, and I'll dry out. California sober. I'm also actually really like, I'm finally working on my weight. So it's like now that I've been in therapy, and that's another thing too. I did therapy, so I was just trying to get my brain right. I'm still in the process of it. This is not nothing is linear, and it's not a pretty process.
Telling me. So the thing, I had a pretty big transformation in life. You know, you talk about bouncing around, doing so many different things until you find what you're passionate about. Right. I worked in my dad's real estate company for 6.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was a property manager, and he's the owner of the company. So it's kind of like, all right, Dad, when are you going to give me the company so I can take it over? Yeah,
nepotism's fun.
Yeah. So it was just like, a lot of trying to convince myself that this is what I wanted to do on the real estate side.
Right.
And I had jaw surgery about like 3.5 years ago, pretty invasive jaw surgery. So I had my jaw broken in 3 places. I have a titanium plate in my mouth.
What happened?
Well, I just had TMJ. So like one side of my mouth was growing out further than the other. So
really?
I would have a smile like kind of like this. You guys see it here?
No way.
And for like 6 months after the surgery, I wasn't able to chew meat. And I gave up meat. So I was just eating like fruits and things that are soft. So for about like the past 3.5 years, I've been like fully vegan, and it's kind of like changed my whole life. I've been doing this full time. So it kind of just like opened up a whole new world. And it's just like something dramatic.
Like a certain window will open up. Like I think what happened with me is that my back was finally against the wall where it was like, are you going to fucking do this or not?
What was that moment, do you think?
I think... All right, there's a couple of moments. I was sitting, there's a couple. So what got me into film, TV was basically, I remember sitting, I had a Coke binge one night in Hilton Head, and there's a dark side to Hilton Head, you Taurus. So there used to be a lot of blow in Hilton Head. We used to like fucking A, now it's gotten Disney World.
Yeah, back before the fentanyl.
But yeah, back before the fentanyl, back before the cruise ships and all the freaking timeshares took over. Hilton Head partied. So, I was laying, and Dante, God rest his soul, who's dead now, I was living in the back of his house. He had a little bungalow, and I was living just stupidly. I got a TV on a milk crate. Everything was on a milk crate. I was living off of milk crates. And I was laying there. I was just like, I have to do something with my fucking life.
And what were you working, and how old were you at that time?
Oh, my God. I was 30 years old. And I was working at my friend's restaurant. I was working in the kitchen. Because I sold a bag of weed to the chef, and because at the time I lived with very interesting people before that. So I had a bag of weed chef, and I was working a couple days a week in the kitchen as a garde-manger, which is like a fancy word for, I was doing the cold and desserts. And then I was also waiting tables during the day and at night. And doing, when we'd do a play or something creative in that regard. But I was just laying there, and I was just like, I'm like, what am I fucking doing? And I was just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then finally, I decided I always either went back to school or I would go to a library. I used to live at libraries whenever I would live in whatever town I was in. If I didn't know anybody if you have no money, you'd go to a library.
Would you be reading books there?
I'd read books, or I was just chilling, or I'd be writing. I always wrote. I always was a writer. I wish I could go into my old computers. I always wrote. I was writing stand-up my whole life, and I didn't know. It was just like these monologues and just like jokes, but I didn't know they were jokes. I was just kind of like, I thought there were just diaries in a journal. I just had to get shit out. Like but I've been doing that since I was a kid. I always did that. When I was a kid, I would act and do characters and stuff like that. I had a character named Mrs. Hairless, but had all this hair. It was stupid. It was just like, but I did that at the really, really young age. And I remember seeing West Side Story when I was a kid, and I was like, oh man, I want to do that. And I just always was attracted to that. I just didn't know, my parents were exposed me to this, but they didn't know what to do with a kid that's interested in it. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, oh, she's just interested in it,
Well, bring you to plays.
Yeah, they'd bring me. Yeah, my dad would, you know what I mean? So, so what was I say? So that was 30. So then I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go back to school and just so I went to Trident Technical College. And this is when, right before Atlanta started blowing up, I worked on Army Wives. And
wait, with Caroline Pyrus?
I don't know, maybe. I was just, again, which is funny, the guy that was working at Trident Tech was amazing. He's like, listen, you're not supposed to take this until your second.
They filmed in South Carolina.
Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah. So I went there, and I was at this school, I was just trying to make ends meet, and I was just trying to take these classes piecemeal just to get me into the system so I can meet people that are of like-mindedness. So then maybe I can work my way into that. Because I couldn't make money in theater. I wasn't acting. I didn't know how to break the scene. I knew I couldn't dance like these fuckers could. I knew I couldn't, sing because I didn't put in the money, and I kind of got jaded in college because you go to an art school and you think it's going to be this wonderful experience where it's like, oh, it's open-minded, but it's not. They pick and choose who they like, and then the rest gets like whatever. We collect your money. So I got fucked over at Marymount. I felt like they were like, they weren't very helpful for me.
And when you went to New York to Marymount, you were like, all right, this is it.
This is it. I thought this would be it. I was going to go to Broadway dance school when I could, when I could afford, and keep up with my tap dancing. I'll take some acting, I'll do these acting classes. But the program was kind of shitty for me. Like my fucking first semester college professor, who was black, by the way, had us do a Raisin in the Sun where I played Mammy for a scene. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing playing Mammy?
Black,
yeah, Mammy's black. She's from the Civil fucking War. I'm sitting there playing a Raisin in the Sun. And I'm like, is he doing this to fuck with us? Or is this really really a class? And there's certain things like I remember doing Streetcar Named Desire, and he made me play Blanche, and I'm like, I know, and I was just like, this doesn't feel right. Like I love these texts and I love the reading of it all, but to perform them, I'm like, I feel like I'm a fraud. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
So this was, you were at Marymount, you felt this way,
yeah.
but then you went back to South Carolina. Was this during the summer because your family still lived down there?
No, I had no family down there. My buddy was just down there, so I went down there and I stayed at his place. I'm telling you, Ted, there's no linear thing to me. I went from there. I went back to. I just kept on trying and failing. I moved to Florida for a minute because my parents bought a place back in the day in Naples, Florida, before that shit blew up. I lived down there, and I worked at a restaurant and dated a half Venezuelan, half Italian dude, and then then that ended and he broke my heart, and I was like, fuck this. I went back to South Carolina to Hilton Head. Then I went back to New York, and I worked for a production company, Elevation Film Works it was called, and I interned for them, and it sucked. And I kept on doing things, and I kept on being like, I know I want to do the arts, but I don't know. I was just trying to I figured labor. Okay, I'm a labor-minded individual. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll give him my labor. I'll just work in labor. And then I worked at a restaurant on the West Side, and I lived in the Bronx on my friend's couch and off fucking Van Cortlandt Park, and I did that for a year, and then I ran out of money and I went back. I always went back to Hilton Head because my friends owned restaurants, so it was always like I could find a job real quick. So that was where I would go back, make money.
Was that kind of random that they own restaurants in Hilton Head?
Yeah, well, I just kind of met people down there. I started befriending people that owned, when people leave Hilton, when you leave a destination in the winter, not now since COVID, but in the winter it was desolate. So it was the best time actually of the year around there because it was still for me warm, and the fall was great too because the golfers would come and spend real money, and we could it wasn't as crazy. And the summer we just work. So when we would hang out, our fun time was always in the winter. So I would you end up bringing a community together that way.
Especially around golf and cocaine. That's what money's
completely,
at.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So I've met a lot of people that owned restaurants. So I was always able to find a job. That was always my go-to to be able to jump. So I jumped around a lot. I went back there, then I went back to New York. I lived in PA for a while because my parents, I went to high school out there, so my parents still had the house, so I could live out there, and I waited tables there. So finally at 30, I had that breakdown. I went on Mandy.com, or what did I do? I applied to intern for the Philadelphia Theater Company to work in their casting department.
Is that what Mandy.com is? What's that?
Mandy.com used to be an old page to get film TV work for crew and all that for anything. Okay. But it's you got paid nothing. So I think I found something. They had an internship, but I would look up all these internship opportunities. I also worked at the Satilli Theater in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a very old theater where actually Gone with the Wind was first premiered.
Was that King Street type?
Yeah, it was definitely on King Street. It was right off of King Street. So it was there. I did that for a minute, and then so I kept on failing. I kept on doing shit and not being happy with it and all this stuff like that. And then a lot of sadness, a lot of drinking, a lot of mistakes. And then finally what got me going was then when I moved, I went to Trident, I got an internship. With the internship, that turned into me meeting people, and then I ended up working on an HGTV show with these Canadians who, shout out to Ryan and Brian, they were the camera department, and they loved me because I always had a sense of urgency to me. So they couldn't find any worker. I remember there was something in the shot, and they're like, oh, I wished I could get out of the shot. And I started running to grab it, to move it. And they're like, we got to fucking have this chick everywhere we go. So they fought for me to work with them, and I traveled with them, and I came back to New York because they were doing stuff back in New York. So I came back here. Then I tried to work with them as a production company. It didn't work. I went back to Philly where my parents live, and I ended up working on a horror movie, piece of shit horror movie that was insane, where I acted in it at a certain point and all this stuff. And then I worked on a multitude of productions. Do No Harm. I did a day on Silver Linings Playbook, all these other like little things. And then I found people from New York, and I worked up here in New York a couple of times. And then it just unravels from there. And then I met a good friend of mine, Billy, who was a line producer, and he put me on a lot of his movies to work on. And then we worked on a movie in Nebraska. I worked on a movie in Detroit, and it was just like, and I still waited tables in between. And then my dad died, so I was insane and working. So it was just like, yeah. So
it almost seems like you got yourself so busy to the point where like you couldn't think like you were with the milk crate situation. You didn't have a second to be like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I didn't have to wake up and be like, gee, how should I solve this problem? No, it was none of that.
And I think that's something that people sometimes will get caught up about.
Yeah,
being at,
I got caught up in life, just
30s.
living in, so it was just insane. So it wasn't until later in my life when I was like, oh man. And even for Kevin Can Wait, I came back, I was broke as shit in Detroit, which is the worst. And I was interning for fucking Quicken Loans in their film media department because I thought maybe I could get, because they had another production company part of it, and I tried to get into an editing house, and the guy that I was going to try to work in this editing house was amazing, and he said to me, he goes, you're a very talented individual, and you should not be here. You should not be here. And he's like, and for that, I'm not going to hire you.
Where was that, like, by the way, Quicken Loans?
Not the Quicken Loans. Quicken Loans was in Detroit. That shit didn't shit to me. So fuck you, Quicken Loans and Gilbert. And way to fuck up Detroit. But, and all those minions. And they put so much money into the city, though. But it's just one of those situations, man. But that city was still amazing. But fuck you, Quicken Loans. And the way, and the whole vernacular, the way they talk, like their teams and shit. I remember, real quick, I'm going to go on a tirade. When they do this thing where they have you intern there for so long, and that's what they use. But it's like all the young kids, they get all these Michigan State kids.
So it's just like comedy?
And U of Men, Michigan. Yeah, it's just like, right? To get, well, no, it's just to get these people into work to, like, it's a freaking, Quicken Loans is a mortgage company. Mm-hmm. And he has got tons of other, the guy's a genius the way he did his shit. I'm going to give him a shout out for that.
Is that Dan Snyder?
No, that's fucking Dan Gilbert.
Oh, yeah. He owns
He owns Rocket Mortgage. It's a fucking huge ass company. He's done a lot.
The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah. And he's got all these things called the isms. It's a cartoon book in which he wants everyone to have individuality, but everyone talks the same way. It's just corporate. Everyone has it. It's the corporate identity bullshit where it's just like, no, we're cool and hip. They have it set up like it's ESPN inside, where it's like you have bubble, because he owns Fathead. Those companies where they put the shit on the walls.
Oh, yeah, that thing used to be so hot.
So hot. And he owns Gas TV. He has a lot. He's a smart guy, smart businessman. But I remember this is when Trump was getting in the vernaculars and he was donating money to that. He also, this is when the housing market crashed right before that, right after that. So I remember I was sitting into one of those meetings that they're having, and the guy, I forget his name, was up there. He's one of the big guys that are of Gilbert, one of the beginning guys too. He goes up there and goes, what happened to the housing crisis? Do you remember what happened? The bubble blew. Anyway, and I'm like, oh, let's talk about that, bro. Let's talk about where your responsibility with that was.
Oh, shit, because they were giving out mad loans.
They're giving out mad loans to people that couldn't afford them.
There you go. And that was part
of it. So it's like, and he was trying to get out of it too. So that's why he wanted Trump to get elected. So it's just like, whatever. So I remember sitting there being like, what the fuck am I doing, man? And being like, this, not like I'm perfect, but I was just kind of like, wow. But that was my first into like view window into corporate America. I never worked it before, because before we do corporate America, but we're like, we're pirates. Like, we're like, here, go make this movie. And
so was that like 2009-ish, 2010?
Yeah, maybe 2009,
And then maybe that's when you were like, all right, I got to get out of
this it's like, I got to get out. Well, it's just like, I got to, I thought I wanted to stay in Detroit, but I couldn't find a job. So the end up trying to find a job, and I forget the company. It was called Red something. But shout out to that man, because that man was like, you need to go back to New York. And then coincidentally, I got a call because I got a recommendation from being in LA. A person that knew someone in LA was shooting a series called Kevin Can Wait in Long Island. And I got a call and they're like, hey, we're looking for someone that can, work first team, which means is you get the actors ready that can, work with the actors. And I need someone experienced, and your name came up. Are you interested? And I was like, hell yeah. So I left Detroit and went right to New York the next day.
What year was that?
That was, I gotta go on IMDb to look. I always have to look on IMDb.
I was thinking that might be on the top of your head since you know all these other things.
Fuck no, man. I don't remember years and dates. Forget about it. I was always bad with it. I can name the war. I can't name the date.
Jess, what would you say to somebody who is, maybe I'm 31 and a half, somebody who is, I guess maybe like in between our age, somebody who's 35 who kind of wants to do what you did, like find their passion in comedy or find something else. What is is it the try and fail? Yeah, if they know what's the move.
If they know, listen, at the end of the day, this is my thing. I was very lucky because at the end of the day, there's no way I got to a certain point where I'd die if I didn't do it. And if you have that, then there's no choice but to do it. And it sounds so, I hate when people like, everything's nuanced, okay? Everyone's in, but every situation's different. But if you're in a situation where you're fucking depressed all the time and there's like nothing that's making you happy, but you just have this inclination of this, go for it. But don't half-ass it, then fucking do it. I'm not saying quit your job, but it's going to be like, you like, it was hard for me for a while there. Like I'd be working long days and then I was like, no, I'm going out to do this because that's what I wanted to do, and it made me happy. I just noticed I was getting happier and happier and happier and meeting good people that it kept me going. So if that's an inclination that you need to do, then fucking try it out. The worst it's going to do is like, your real test is that if it's a summer and it's Saturday at 1:00 and your old friends that you've been normies with are going to the beach, but you're happy in a basement telling whatever dick jokes or men can't make me cum jokes, then that's where you're supposed to be. And I remember that was like that specifically. I remember that happening, being like, this is nowhere else I want to be right now. And that's just what it was.
Jess Levin, that was really an amazing episode. Thank you so much for opening the door for us. You were an open book. Jess, before we get out of here, we're going to turn around this episode pretty quick. So this will be up tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Let us know your schedule for like the next coming week while we pop up your Instagram right here, and let us know your Instagram.
Oh my God. So that's awesome. You do the turnaround so wicked quick, dude. Damn, you're a man. So I at JLev Comedy on Instagram. So make sure you follow that. I put all my dates up there, but I'm at the Comedy Shop. When am I there? Friday and Saturday. I've got a bunch of produced shows that I'm on. I'm going to be at QED on Friday night. I see
that. You got a lot going on. 9:30.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got a lot. I'm blessed. I get a lot of spots. So I'm doing good. Everything's going good for right now until they dry up.
That's what I'm talking about. Jess, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.